Hello, my name is Anna Swan. I work at EMBL-EBI as part of the training team. Recently, we redesigned our training website, and during this presentation, I'm going to tell you a bit about that redesign and how we considered the FAIR principles during the redevelopment of the site and along the way. As I'm sure many of you are aware, at EMBL-EBI we deliver many different tools and resources for the life sciences community, but there are also many groups at the EBI working on research, engaging with industry across Europe, and playing a part in coordination of bioinformatics efforts across Europe. But the EBI also has a focus on training scientists in bioinformatics. We'd received a lot of feedback from our users that training wasn't particularly easy to find. So we were planning a redevelopment. And then following the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, it became clearer that our training no longer fit into quite the same groupings as it previously had, particularly as we took our face-to-face training virtual. So this meant online could no longer be used to only describe training such as webinars and self-paced online tutorials. So at that point, we stopped to think about how we could explain what we offered, and we felt it could be best described in these three ways. So on the left, we have live training. This incorporates the in-person training that we plan to hopefully return to soon, both on our campus and at other institutes around the world, as well as virtual training. So we use Zoom for that, and our series of webinars via Zoom webinars. We then have this second section, on demand. This is everything that is available anytime. So our online tutorials and our webinar recordings, as well as materials from our previous live courses. Finally, we have this third section, which is more informational, a section providing support to our trainers, such as information about how to reuse our materials. So that's the kind of training we wanted to present via our website. And the main aims of our website are summarised here. Firstly, we want people to use both our training, our materials, and the EBI's resources. We want people to use them, but we also want people to make the most of that training and those resources. But that's not all. We also want our users to be able to feed back to us, to tell us what they use, how they use it, and what else they actually need. We want our trainers to receive recognition for their work, for their efforts. And lastly, we want other trainers to gain from our work, from our trainers' work. So following the FAIR principles helped us plan and develop a website to provide these aims. I'm sure many of you are aware of these FAIR principles, but just to clarify them and how they relate to training materials. So firstly, we have findable, and for that, we need to ensure the content is indexed in some way, it's available to others, and it's uniquely identifiable. For accessible, we need to provide clear access rules that people can understand, as well as metadata for those materials. We have I for interoperable, and we need to make sure the formats of the materials are usable by others. It's no good making something findable to people if most people can't actually use them. And lastly, we have reusable. So well described with a clear license, and indeed that license made obvious, so users don't need to hunt around to find what they can actually do with the materials. So this image, taken from the 10 Simple Rules for Making Training Materials Fair paper, really highlights how these principles can be applied to training materials. Right at the centre there we have share, which all the other points encircle. Moving on to describing properly, give them the materials a unique ID, which I'll show an example of later on. Provide the online registration, make it clear how content can actually be accessed, how people can review it. Use interoperable formats, as I just mentioned. Make training usable for trainees and reusable for trainers. Welcome contributions, show that you want to hear from people, and provide a clear way of them actually doing that. And lastly, keep your materials up to date, and indeed let people know when they were last updated, so that they can factor that in and when they're considering the validity of materials. So these were the principles we had in mind as we continued with the redevelopment of our training site. And over the remaining slides, I'm going to give examples about how we implemented these principles on the site. Starting with that central concept of share. This is the homepage of the new site where we are sharing training. And as mentioned previously, this includes our live training, on-demand, support for trainers. We also have these featured courses, which highlights courses that are coming up soon, that are available for registration or application. And we have this search box, which I'll come back to at the top. But thinking about our live training, this links through to our upcoming live events, which can be filtered down the left-hand side to refine the results shown. At the moment, it's all online, but hopefully we have some more locations coming up soon. And at this point, it's easy to see which events are open, what type of event it is, and it's also possible to click up to the top here to see what past events there have been, and to check out the materials for those, to see what was covered, to see which trainers were involved, and what the programs were for those courses. Switching to on-demand training, we have the same kind of way of refining training using the filters to help the user find what they're looking for, give an idea about the kind of time that they'll need to complete the on-demand training. Lots of users come with a set amount of time in mind, and just to give them the idea about what they can actually complete during that amount of time. An extra type of on-demand training that will be appearing in this list shortly is the course materials type. And that's the materials from live training that will be presented together in a collection for anyone who'd like to review materials from past courses or use them in their own training. We provided these previously via an FTP, but this new format will provide people with far more context and descriptions about the sessions and what's available and how that was all brought together in the context of the course. Also takes the time to give some details of the trainers, their biographies, to make sure that people understand where that training material actually came from, and whether or not they want to spend time working through it themselves. So that's how we describe training, and that's useful for people who know what kind of training or materials they're looking for. But if someone comes to the site with a topic in mind, we also have this search box that I mentioned previously before, available at the top of the homepage. And as you start typing into this box, you'll see suggestions to help with the search. You're not limited to just that list of suggestions, but it's there to give you an idea about the kind of thing that you could search for. So all our courses and materials have metadata describing them, which also populates this search completion suggestions. So this includes EDAM ontology terms, EBI resources, and other keywords that we've identified that describe the courses well. So once people have found what they're looking for, they may want to share further. We've added in these social media links on each page to help with that. To share upcoming courses with colleagues or recently completed online tutorials that may benefit others too if they'd like to work through them. But it's also on each of the individual pages of the online tutorials. So perhaps it's only one page that someone wants to share, and that's completely fine and doable too. Throughout our different types of training and materials, we have tried to provide clear explanations of how to access content. Here's an example from a recorded webinar. We have the big watch video button up the top here, which is actually a big register button prior to the webinar taking place, with the access material button just below that. So that's a link to a PDF of the slides. And before the webinar actually took place, we have this how to attend tab, which provides a bit more detail about how to register, how the webinar will run, the tools used, and how to get help too. So as I introduced the FAIR principles before, I mentioned about unique IDs. So we create and show a DIY for all our on-demand content. So the online tutorials, the recorded webinars, and this new collection of course materials too. Make that clearly available on the front page of those types of training. And if we're making all these online tutorials and collections of materials available online, we need to make sure it's clear how they can be reused. We have the CC BY icon on every page with a link through to where it describes this in more information, in more detail on the CC website. And recently we've moved from CC BY SA to CC BY, so we wanted to make sure that was up to date and understandable and clear to everyone. We also provide a bit more information on how trainers can reuse these materials to make sure other trainers are clear in what they can do, and by providing a bit more information about the CC BY license and what this means. By highlighting this information a bit more, hopefully we can encourage trainers to use our materials in whatever way works for them, and also to get in contact with us if they want to talk about anything. So we provide these materials as training, but we're also really keen to hear from our users with various means of doing so, including a form on all our online tutorials, asking what they liked about the course, what they thought could be improved, and how they can actually going to apply what they've learned, because it's really interesting for us to actually understand how people are using this kind of information. We also have links to social media, our social media, so that people can get in contact with us however works for them. And we're also collecting feedback on our new working website, so that people can let us know what's working well for them and what they think still needs to be improved upon. Lastly, we have keeping up to date, and this can be difficult and time consuming, but it's helpful for users to make sure that materials are suitable for them, that they're still valid. And so in our online tutorials, we have a last review date. So this is a yearly review cycle to make sure that all our materials are still suitable. Our trainers take a look through and make sure that there isn't anything incorrect that they should be adding more to. And all our past materials from courses have the date on which the course actually happened, so people can see when it was that content was new. So for my final slide, I wanted to highlight that the new website is live. It has been for quite a few months now, but it is still very much a work in progress. We're continually receiving and acting on feedback from our users and doing testing. We're improving the use of bias schemas, so that actually includes testing the course in course instance types and giving feedback on that. And at the moment, we're particularly working on personalization. So this will provide users a registration ability and logins, so that they will then be able to bookmark and plan their training of interest and track what they have already completed. So I hope this presentation has given you an idea about both our training offering and how FAIR principles can be implemented. This is by no means the only way to do things, or even every way that we think about our materials being fair, but hopefully it has given you a good overview about the kind of ways that we make sure our training and our materials are fair. So the website can be accessed via this link at the bottom. And if you're interested in keeping up to date with the training we have on offering, at EBI Training on Twitter is a good way to do so. So thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.